What's up, YouTube? Welcome to the channel. This has definitely been a long time coming, but I decided that I need to commit. If I'm going to give this a go, I really need to actually commit. So here I am, here we are, really excited to get this going, and just wanted to give sort of a general overview of, why I'm starting this channel. So, like most of you, I really find YouTube to be an incredibly valuable resource, especially now that we're all indoors and we're all sort of confined to our little spaces. YouTube has become an incredibly powerful tool for connection, and that's really what I'm looking to accomplish here. I want to make some genuine connections with other creatives out there. So I really want to use this channel to cover my lived experience as a creative more than anything else. Obviously, I do like all of the different content creators that exist in this little photography niche here, so I'm not taking anything away from them, but I do think that there are plenty of gear-related channels and technique channels to satiate us all, and I don't want to just be another voice in the crowd or chase after a certain structure that has proven to work on this platform. Instead, I want to talk about things that are a bit more esoteric to what it means to be a creative. I want to talk about things like inspiration and how we express ourselves, finding our voice, finding our eye, refining our technique, the relationship that we have with photography and what that means to our identity. Things like that are what interests me, and I really want to dive deep into them in a meaningful way in hopes that I can just add another layer to the community here, because like I said, gear-oriented videos are spectacular. I love them. I am a gearhead just like everyone else, but I do find myself wanting for a deeper conversation oftentimes as to why we're out here taking these pictures and creating and trying to find some means of expression through a visual medium. So to that end, this video is going to serve as the beginning for a series that I am going to be creating here that centers around inspiration. Not just the means of inspiration that I utilize or what I consider to be inspirational, but my relationship and my intention behind utilizing inspiration is something that I really feel passionately about exploring. I've been in the social media realm for some time, and at this point, even though I am making a decent living given the amount of time that I devote to it, I do find myself asking why quite often. Why am I doing this? Why am I out here creating? What is the impact that I'm going to leave? How are people going to receive my photos, and why is it important for me? Why is it important to me that they receive it in a certain way? A lot of my questions stem from my activity on my social media platform. And as great as social media can be, and as beneficial as it has been to my personal growth as a photographer, there's no denying that there are detrimental aspects to social media. As a creator, I'm sure I'm not alone in this. My relationship has evolved, and it has served as both a benefit and a detriment to me. Benefit in that I've been able to get my work out in front of people in a meaningful, consistent way. But detrimental in that, without really trying, my work quickly veered into being derivative, thanks to the algorithm and human nature, I just started creating what I thought would get likes instead of what I really felt passionately about. And I'm sure, again, I'm not alone in that. Clearly, you can log on to Instagram right now and see a million pictures basically of the same thing and the same styling by a million different creators. While I understand why we follow these well-trodden paths in terms of aesthetic and subject matter, I still find myself questioning my own intention as to why I personally am following it. I don't have any desire to really be famous. I don't have any desire to gather a large following. But I still find myself, even right now, when I've set my intention otherwise, going out and asking what shot will get the most likes, the most interaction. What shot do I know will hit? And that bothers me. That bothers me tremendously. I'll get home knowing that I've gotten a shot and not posting it because I just feel like it didn't communicate what I really want to communicate with my art. So what I've begun doing is really intentionally drawing upon other mediums for inspiration, be it music or cinema or the traditional arts, paintings, sculptures, anything. I've been looking to really expand my well of, or my toolbox, we'll say, when it comes to what I consider inspiring and how they are impacting my work. One of the most immediate sources that I have learned to tap in a real meaningful way are the greats of our past. If you're a photographer, we stand on the shoulders of giants, as they say, and there are really historically important figures in our space that have made work that transcends time, really. And once I started really diving into the history of photography and looking at the portfolio and the projects of some of the greats, it really served to help orient me and my journey. It gave me some context. It motivated me to start creating work that would live beyond a screen. And it inspired me to really take seriously my long-term project, the Movement Diaries, which we'll be touching on a lot in this journey, this conversation that we're having here, so that I can make it a real substantial body of work that I can be proud of, that will live on beyond me, and that will inform my legacy once I'm gone. So I thought it appropriate to just touch on a few of the greats and their work that have been inspiring me lately. And this particular conversation, I won't go too deep. I plan on having deep dives into nearly every book in my collection here, but this is just to serve as sort of a primer and to just get these particular works on your mind if you are a photographer and just looking for something to really aspire to. First, we have the incredible, mysterious genius, mad genius, Saul Leiter. So if you're not familiar with Saul Leiter, he recently passed, a photographer who really kind of defies convention. He started out as a painter, and his painterly instincts really come out in his work. He began photography as a fashion photographer and became really well known for his sort of unconventional take on fashion photography. A lot of it was very traditional, sort of, if you think of like the old Sears catalogs, he sort of came out in that era, but he had a very unique and painterly way of viewing his models, and it really showed in his work. He didn't really achieve a lot of fame during his lifetime, which is also sort of something that can serve as an inspiration to us all, that the work we create now may not be appreciated now, but time will go on and you will find your audience at some point. But later in his life, he basically was rediscovered, and a lot of his street photography that he did in his own personal time became pretty much the most important work in his catalog. And let me see if I can find a few examples here. He was very well known for embracing color at a time where color wasn't really seen as a legitimate art form. Photography for a very long time was only considered serious if it was in black and white, and he bucked that trend. He also became very well known for his unique eye. You can see here that he's able to create images that at first glance seem to not have a lot of rhyme or reason, but they draw you in, and all of a sudden you start seeing patterns, you start seeing the intentionality behind his compositions, his use of color as a story making tool, and all of those sort of things start tying together to start creating some really powerful, evocative, and timeless images. After discovering him, it really invigorated me to take my own street photography more seriously. So once I did that, I started looking for some of the greats, and Saul Leiter came to the top of the list, and I really dove into his work, and I find it incredibly inspiring and really beautiful. So Saul Leiter, look him up, get to know him, and you'll thank yourself for it. Here we have one of the true greats, an incomparable polymath, just somebody who's really personally important to me, the great Gordon Parks. This is not Gordon Parks, by the way. Gordon Parks, it's hard to describe him because he is such a sort of, larger than life figure. It's hard to really summarize everything that he is. He was an incredible transcendent photographer, but not just that. He was the first black director in Hollywood. He was a composer of classical music. He was a painter. He was an orator. He was a poet. He was really just first in quite a bit. He was Life magazine's first black photographer. So, and amazingly, he didn't pick up a camera until he was in his 30s. So again, learning that the history of photography puts things in perspective. It helps orient your own journey. This man is universally considered one of the greatest, and he didn't start photography until he was in his 30s. Some of the images that he's made, I would consider them iconoclastic. He's created and shaped a good amount of what popular media knows as the black experience in America. So a lot of his images have been used as descriptors of what it means to be an American, sort of a visual dictionary of the American dream. And he can be really credited, along with some of his contemporaries, but him in particular, he can be credited with showing white America their first glimpse of the true Black experience. Some of his photos that he ran in Life magazine were the first time that, I'd say, middle America that's not in the South, had really come face to face with what the lived Black experience was, and the sort of juxtaposition of the American dream towards the American reality. But any person who considers themselves a fan of the arts, a fan of, self-expressionism through various means, Gordon Parks will be a revelation to you. He is something that really only happens maybe once a generation. You get somebody who's truly as talented as this man, but I would bet it's even rarer than that. It's not just about looking to the past. It's not just about, looking at these works that have this great historical and cultural significance. It's also about looking to the individuals who you consider, masters of their work. Photographers who have specialized and honed in on their craft and their particular genre and are really creating some, transcendent works of art. That's where my next book comes in. They've been making work for quite some time, but they recently released a book and I had to grab it, and I'm glad that I did. On Instagram, you can find the creators of this book under the handle NYC Dance Project, which some of you may be familiar with, but their real names are Ken Brower and Deborah Ori, and they are a couple that has specialized in ballet photography for years, and they really, in my mind, perfected it. And this work is really just sort of breathtaking. It's incredible. It's inspiring. It's something that I look to quite often when I'm in a rut, because it shows me the possibilities of dance photography. With each one of these, I feel something, and it's in everything. It's in the dancer, it's in the lighting, the simplistic backdrops, the dynamic movement, the mastery of capturing those decisive moments that are extremely fleeting in dance photography. And it's the composition of the book itself, which is an overlooked art, but just the journey that you take through some of these images and what they are able to capture time and time again is really just incredible. And they are still working. They are still hard at work, and they are the closest of all of these individuals to what I personally work on. And they have crafted a career out of this particular genre that I am incredibly inspired by, and cannot recommend this book enough. The Style of Movement by Ken Brower and Deborah Ori. Pick it up. No matter your genre, you will be inspired. A man that really doesn't need any introduction. If you have seen any National Geographic images, particularly of people in the Middle East, people really all over the world, in India, it was likely you saw Steve Mccurry's work. He is, I think, widely considered one of the greatest living legends in photography. He has a very specific look to his images that are pretty recognizable once you become familiar with his work. And that's one of the things that I most admire about his work, is that it's extremely hard, and I know that a lot of photographers out there can resonate with this, but it's extremely hard to find your voice in photography, particularly now when there's so many photographers out there, so much content being made constantly, so much repetition. It can be extremely hard to find your visual signature, and it's something that I struggle with to this day. And it's where Steve McCurry really shines, be it in his use of color or composition, or his ability to sort of capture moments that otherwise would go unnoticed. He clearly connects with a lot of his subject matter on a deep level, because he's able to showcase aspects of culture that go beyond the surface level and really inform the viewer as to, you know, what the real life experience is of the people that he shoots, that he captures. So you know, it's hard to briefly talk about Steve McCurry, because he is basically shaped a lot of what we think of when it comes to sort of the visuals around places like India, Afghanistan. This book here, there are a few different images that I'm sure I could show you that I know you've seen, but probably weren't aware that it was one individual who was capturing this. And that's a powerful thing when you can really shape an entire, say, population's conception of a foreign nation. So, you know, just an example of his sort of style here, this right off the bat, I'm sure you feel how beautiful this image is. But then when you break it down technically, it's so layered and rich that it seems impossible to capture. I mean, this is like a once-in-a-lifetime picture for most photographers, and he has literally an entire book of these. So like his use of color, right? You know, using the contrast of gold and teal, and his use of framing, you know, the composition, you see Fibonacci spiral, then the mystery in the photo, you know, the textures, the use of shadow to add depth, the veiled face. Obviously that's not of his making, but could there be a more perfect subject in this particular frame? No. That's just one. You know, I mean, I've never personally captured an image that powerful, and this is page 163 of, like, you know, 250 or something. So, you know, he's been able to gain a level of access. Now, mind you, this was made over like 30 years, so he's shot, I'm sure, tens of thousands of images, mostly on film. And you know, he's whittled down decades of work into this particular book. All the same, again, photographers can go their entire lives without capturing a tenth of these images. You know, something like that. That's about being at the right place at the right time, which, you know, comes from access, comes from comfort, comes from desire. It comes from a place of empathy. It comes from, you know, really wanting to be where you're at, wanting to photograph what you're photographing. I'm trying to find some of his more famous works, but you get the idea. He's just a modern day master who is still working, I believe, and is really he has no equal in today's photography world. So looking at his work has definitely humbled me quite a bit, even though it's not my particular genre. It's nearly impossible to not be inspired by this. The way he's able to utilize light and, you know, again, access, making connections with his subject matter, all of that comes through brilliantly in his work. And yeah, it's inspired me to really go out there and look beyond the surface and try to be much more intentional and be much more determined in my work, going out there and shooting and shooting and shooting, and not getting discouraged when I can't just come back with something incredible, because I know I'll be out there the next day. So these are just a few. I'm gonna dive into a lot more. That's really all I wanted to share today, and hopefully you guys are inspired enough to look into them, at least if not these particular books, look into the artists themselves, and I guarantee you will be inspired to keep on your own personal journey and not give up, and start shooting with a bit more intention and being true to yourself, because at the end of the day, photography should be a journey of yourself, and every picture you take is a reflection of yourself. So being intentional to that end will only benefit you and make your work that much more enduring. So hope you guys enjoyed this. Really excited to keep making more of these. Please like and subscribe. All the support really helps. Thank you guys. I'll see you next time.